But all of this is very, very labor intensive. In January of this year, there's 39 firefighters in the fire department. As we speak right now, there's 27. So our ability to provide service to the community has gone down. Everybody is doing 110% that they can on the fire department. It takes people. We have reduced numbers on the shift, and what you see more frequently now may be a Bedford ambulance or a Bedford fire truck. You may see a Bedford Heights coming into town, and that's called mutual aid. And anytime we need help, and mutual aid is there for when you are unable to provide the service because of the number of incidents going on at the same time. So we utilize them, they utilize us. It's a two-way street. But you may see them a little more frequently now than you did in the past. But there is no charge for that. That's something that we've all agreed upon, and we can go anywhere in the state of Ohio if it's need be for some large disaster, and they will come and help us at a time of need also. But we did have some resignations, we had retirements, and we had 4 people laid off in the fire department this year. So when those things occur, the younger people on the department, they have young families, they get very concerned about their stability in the department, stability in the city, and they're going to look for employment elsewhere, and that's what did happen. So we lost some very good talent, some very good people in this past year. Along with the cuts in emergency responses, one of the other charges we have are the inspections of all the buildings in the community. Every year we're supposed to be in all the stores, all the schools, all the nursing homes, everything that you may frequent for a business. We had 2 fire inspectors previously that would do that. We have over 800 buildings that we have to inspect each year. We're down to 1 inspector now, so it's impossible for us to get into each of the buildings. So we prioritize. We get into the schools twice a year because that's a mandate. We must do that. We get into the nursing homes. Those people are unable to help themselves. They're unable to get out in the event of a fire, so we need to make it as fire safe as possible. And any of the other larger buildings that we can get into. But also, they're going around and a business wants to renovate or open. They need to go along with the building department, and they will do the inspections there. But the normal mom and pop stores that we would get into routinely once a year, that's not happening. We'll be lucky to get into them every 2 years because of cutbacks. Along with that, our vehicles, we're going on more and more incidents every year. So the fleet ages. We're not able to replace the fleet as often as we would like to. The rescue squads that we utilize, they were purchased with the intent of every 5 years rotating. They get a lot of miles put on them. They do a lot of idling. You say, well, it's only 5 years old or 6 years old, 7 years old. My car is 10 years old. So when you're taking an emergency vehicle and you're running it very hard, and then it's going to go to a scene that's going to idle for an hour and get many, many hours of idling time on that vehicle, it wears it out. The fire trucks, when they go to a fire, many times the fire trucks will go 20 years with only 30,000 miles on it. You say, man, that's pretty good. I'd like to have my car 20 years old and only 30,000, but you'll have thousands and thousands of hours of pump time and just sitting idling at a scene. So all of that takes time, the toll on the vehicles, and to be able to replace them, we haven't been able to. So we're running with 9-year-old squads that are constant maintenance problems. And we need to look at how are we going to fund being able to replace these vehicles. And also the firefighting gear that we utilize, we call it the turnout gear. When you see the firemen at the fire scene, they have the heavy coats and the helmets and the boots and everything else, and the air packs that they wear. They're only good for so many years, and it depends, of course, on how many fires you go to. But we're stretching that out longer and longer and longer. The air packs that we have are 10 years old, and we are just able to, through some creative ability there, to get those replaced. They were malfunctioning, and it does impede us being able to do our duty there. Just so you're aware, firefighters are not sitting in the station all day here doing nothing. We do train. Every day there's mandated training that they have to be up on their skills for paramedic training, for fire training, and everything else that the hazmat that they have to do. That's along with handling the incidents. We are the 5th busiest fire department in Cuyahoga County with the exclusion of Cleveland. Now all of those departments have many, many thousand more people in their communities. but they also have more than 2 to 3 times the number of firefighters on the department to handle the incidents. So I think we should be pretty proud that our firefighters are able to handle the incidents that they handle with the numbers that they have. So we are very, very busy. You may not see them out all the time, but I guarantee you they're out there. And in case you are not aware of it, we do charge for ambulance billing. When you're transported to hospital, you will see that your insurance agency is sent an invoice for the transport. That is a common practice all over the country. And it is allowed. You are being charged for that service. And many years the insurance companies never had to pay a penny out on that. And this is one way that the communities are able to help fund fire services and EMS services. So that you may get a statement of benefit or something like that that tells you that your city transported you and there was a cost for that. Over the years, and I won't keep you much longer here, but in the last 5 years, our number of incidents has gone up almost 700 calls per year. It is increasing constantly. Where we used to do 2,000 calls a year, we're up approaching almost 5,000 incidents for this year. So, again, they're all labor intensive. There's a need for people. And we certainly would help or request that you would support the levy, and possibly we'll be able to get a little additional staffing for the department. I thank you, and hope to answer some questions.
Got one. I was just wondering, you was talking about the spill that you had on 480 over there. Do the EPA ever get involved in any of this stuff? Do they ever give you monies? Because it's really their problem, and y'all actually working for them if it's another company that'll spill PCP on the highway. How does that work?
Yes, the EPA does get involved. We call them, we're the first responders. We had the EPA out there, the Highway Patrol, we had every agency you can think of that comes out, but they were there.
What about interns? Do you ever use interns? You got a great career. I'm sure there's young people out here would love to know how to do your job or any other firefighter job. You got to use interns.
We did attempt a number of years ago to do an intern program with the city of Cleveland, and they never materialized. The city of Cleveland did not follow through. Yeah, I understand that, but they were with our people in town, with our students. We offered it also with the school system a number of years ago, and there just was not an interest in it.
Yeah, I got a son, he loved to learn how to do that.
Have them call us. Have them call.
Okay.
We have riders at the fire department all the time. They want to learn the job. Can't put them in harm's way, but we'll certainly show them the trade. Absolutely.
Don't forget, Mr. Alex Adams is in the back, and he has cards if you have questions. We'll try to keep moving this along so we get the important information out, and then leave questions for hopefully for the end. Our next speakers are acting police chief Popolarczyk, and he's got lots of information for you.
Is there another Chief Popolarczyk coming? Good evening. Thank everybody for coming out tonight. As Ms. Elder said, my name is John Popolarczyk. I am the acting Chief of Police for the City of Maple Heights right now. I've been the acting chief since May. As the mayor says, it's an act. Perhaps we'll get an Academy Award at some point. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but I guess we'll see in the end. I've been with the department. Okay, it's a little better for me anyway. All right. I've been with the department since 1990. I've served this community for over 24 years, almost 25 in February. I've served in a number of roles in my history here in the department. I started out as a patrol officer, served as a field training officer, patrol sergeant, detective lieutenant, patrol lieutenant, and most recently the administrative captain prior to my appointment here as the acting chief. Chief Merritz was going to retire, or is going to retire. He left on Monday in May. We had the election here for the levy, the most recent levy, that Tuesday, and we went to fiscal watch, and I hit the ground running from that point on. So it's been very busy in the police department that way. Before I begin with my speech, I'd like to address the gentleman here who talked about interns. One of the problems with getting interns into public service or any service anymore is there are federal laws that require you to pay them. Obviously, that can't be done. It used to be in the past, we used to take interns for college credits, that kind of thing, in the police department. I'm sure the fire department entertained those things just as well. Unfortunately, that law continually changes. And the most recent thing that we received on it is that we can no longer do that unless we're willing to pay them and then pay into Social Security and that kind of thing. So that's why we don't employ them. We do allow, as the fire chief said, we do allow ride-alongs. You're welcome to come visit the station anytime. We, of course, ask that you call first because we are very busy. But if anybody who has an interest, and we're closely, involved in the schools, anybody that has an interest in that or would be interested in seeing what the police and firemen do, we'd be happy to show them. As the fire chief said, like everything here, because we are public servants, it is based on the amount of money that's provided to us from public funding. In other words, we're not a for-profit corporation here as a city. We're dependent on tax dollars and revenues that come in from other places in order to support the police and fire and all the other public service department as well. Our staffing levels, much as the fire chief said, have gone down dramatically. I'm going to give you a little history lesson. And anybody who's heard me speak at council meetings, I apologize because you're going to hear the same thing that you heard there before. When I started back in 1990, we got on average in calls for service for our department, roughly 10 to 12,000 calls for service per year. A significant number, but certainly not bad. Our staffing at that time, depending on the year, and in those first 5 years, probably between 43 and 48 officers. High 48 and probably go on average somewhere between 43 and 44. Very few crimes of violence. Okay, very few shootings, very few felonious assaults, very few stabbings. Our numbers now in 2014, 25 years later, we now do roughly, over the last 3 to 5 years, 25,000 calls for service. Okay, 25,000 calls for service as opposed to 10 to 12. Okay. Additionally, our staffing levels have dropped dramatically. 2 to 3 years ago, we were at 41, which isn't too far off from where we are. Okay, we're currently staffed at 36 officers. Okay, with one of those being Chief Merritt, who will be off the books at the end of the year, and hopefully he'll get his job. But the point is that more work, less people. These calls aren't just calls like, we're going to get the cat out of the tree, or we're going to tell somebody to take their garbage cans off. Although we do get those, and we're okay with responding to them. But we do have very many more serious calls now that we respond to. You can imagine the workload and the effort that requires in terms of the investigative hours and the things that people have to do to respond to them. Again, much like the fire chief said, we're also faced with the fact that in addition to responding to those calls for service, our officers that are here are leaving for other places. They're concerned about their jobs, about their livelihoods. For those of you who are aware of the public service sector, our pensions are based on our top 3 years of salary. Okay, if you haven't gotten a raise in 5 years and you have a young family, that's a concern to you. So we can't fault them for that, but when we lose those people, we lose highly trained officers who quite frankly have a lot of experience. A patrolman in the city of Maple Heights probably has, within a 5-year period, gets 3 times the experience of any suburb surrounding us. Something about the volume of the calls and the training that they receive. We don't, in terms of our current staffing levels, while we're at 36 now, we anticipate to be down at least another 3 officers by the end of the year. Okay, and potentially, I know personally of at least 4 to 5 other younger officers who are on lists with other departments. Okay, we have lost 4 other officers over the course of this year, 2 other agencies, and we've lost that experience, and they were good police officers, and they served this community well. This is a concern, not just for me, but for all of us, because without bodies, we can't respond to crime. When I started, again, history lesson, our shift minimums back in 1990 were 5 officers on day shift, 7A to 3P, 7 officers from 3P to 11P, and 5 officers from 11A to 7, or 11P to 7A. Do you know what they are now? Anybody care to wager a guess? They're exactly the same. Okay, our staffing levels are exactly the same as they were 24 years ago. And we've increased our volume of calls by 15,000 calls for service per year. That's a significant increase. Okay, do I have any mechanics in the car? Anybody who works on cars? Anybody know what it means to redline an engine? Redline an engine when you work it so hard that it's going to blow up? Okay, well that's what we're getting to there, folks. We're getting to critical mass. Okay, we're running the engine a little too fast, and there's not enough oil or gas to go into it, and it's going to blow up. And we need to do something to stop that. And the only way we can do that is with your help and your support in terms of the levies that the council and the mayor are asking you to pass. Our vehicles too are in need of repair. Okay, right now I have three police vehicles that are roughly at 100,000 miles, okay, with no money to purchase them, to purchase additional ones. Okay, that's a problem. Without cars, we can't respond to your calls. We currently pay overtime because of our low staffing levels in order to meet those shift minimums that I just told you about. We don't go below those minimums for a couple of reasons. One is for the safety of the officers, and the other is for the safety of the citizens and the community, because quite frankly, what we have is probably the bare minimum that we need in order to get the job done now. To go lower would just be dangerous for everybody involved. We continue to struggle with things like training. We're mandated to provide 4 hours of training per year with no real means to provide for it at this point. In other words, we have to do it on shift. I can't send anybody to schools. There's no money for that right now. Okay, there's nothing there. I don't have a training budget per se, and we have to work it into the thing. We conduct our skills training on shift, on duty, and it creates quite a burden. Fortunately, many of the officers give of their own time in order to provide some of that training. What we're looking at is if we don't pass this, we won't have the resources to continue to provide the level of service that you as citizens have become accustomed to. You know, unfortunately, it really comes down to that you get what you pay for, what you're willing to pay for. Does that mean we're not going to respond to calls? No. Does it mean I'm trying to threaten you or make you afraid? No. It's a simple fact. Mr. Jujanski said it many times in the meeting. The citizens will get the level of services that they're willing to pay. If we don't have the money and we can't pay for people, things will go down. Perhaps we won't come out on your burglary immediately. And maybe we'll have to come out when we have someone available. We will have to prioritize calls. You know, much like Cleveland and some of the larger, city agencies do. Because we're at that point. 25,000 calls for service in the level of staffing that we have is a lot. It's a lot to ask of people, and they can only do so much. We're willing to do it all, okay, but we need some help to do it. Okay, and it would certainly help to have more bodies here. Ultimately, all of you and your neighbors and the people here, I counted now, there's about 89 people here. I believe the last census count there was about 21,000 in the city. Okay, you need to get involved. Okay, you need to get out there, you need to let people know what's going on and what's going to be necessary to keep things going here. Finance director will come and tell you what the fiscal situation is here in the city. It's no secret. We've all seen it. We're on fiscal watch trying to stand a fiscal emergency. Okay. We need to get some revenue, and the only way we can do that is through the public support. On behalf of myself and the other members of the Maple Heights Police Department, I'm asking you to support the levies that they're presenting to you this year. Okay. I'm asking you to help us so that we can continue to help you in the way that we have in the 24 years that I've been here. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Thanks for coming.
But it's my understanding, with all these cameras and things that's going on, isn't that helping the revenue? Where's that money going?
Well, the camera helps the revenue, but remember something. First off, you have to ask the financial where money goes because the police department only handles safety.
Well,
so I can talk about it. If you have $1.6 million in debt,
I understand.
Okay, you pay your bills first. Okay,
So
there's no.
this is a money grab? That's what this is?
What is a money grab?
These cameras and traffic.
Is the camera a money grab? Let's talk a little bit about the cameras if that's what we want to address. Okay, sure, not a problem. Since the cameras have been, we at the police department, we do not deal with money. Okay, I'm going to tell you that now. The only thing we're concerned about is the public safety. Okay, I'm in charge of the cameras because that's what council voted, and that's how it is. So I run the system. So let's talk a little bit about the reduction in speed. Since the cameras have been in place on Warrensville Center Road, and this is a study that was done by OptiTraffic, the company that services us, since July 18th until September 19th, on Warrensville Center, the speed limit, the incidence of speeding has been reduced by 50%. 5-0. On Broadway, they've been reduced by 32%. That's 3-2. If you're concerned that it's unfairly targeting the residents, the most recent information I have from them is that 6% of the people who receive citations are residents. 6%.
This is the ordinance that the mayor and the council wrote in.
Correct.
We didn't get a chance to vote on this, so next month, if they decide they're not getting enough revenue, can they automatically write this thing again and say, double this time? Triple this time?
I don't understand what you're saying.
And you real blue line, I can't pay. Then what?
If you don't, hey sir, if you don't agree,
We didn't get a chance to vote for this.
when you have a chance to vote on that, you elected the representatives who came here. You're going to have an opportunity, this November, it's going to be on the ballot. And you can make the decision. Yes. It's on the ballot. And you can make the decision at that point whether or not you want to support it or not. There certainly is a revenue portion to it, but it's a safety issue. We don't?
Did you say you get 15,000 calls a year, or is it
25,000 calls for service per year. On average, 25,000. It's up from 10 to 12,000 when I started. Sure.
Yeah, do you keep control where your officers are 24/7?
Do I keep control of where my officers are 24/7? How would I do that, sir?
Well, I don't know. I go to the gas station, they're bagging my groceries when they should be out there doing their job. It shouldn't happen.
Well, let me address this because it's important. So they're up at the Giant Eagle bagging your groceries?
No,
Where?
Marathon gas station on Warrensville and Maple Heights.
Did you ever call to let anybody know?
It's your job.
No, it's not my job. I'm there 24/7. Did you call me to let me know that it's happening?
No, I can tell.
Did you call to report what you saw?
Because we live on a dead-end street.
Did you call to report what happened, sir?
It's
Did
always-
you call me to report what happened?
Do I have to call you? Can't you keep up with that?
How am I to keep up with the police officer when it happened? Do I know what every crime is occurring in the city?
Well, your speed cameras is 100 yards away.
My speed camera is 100 yards
And
away.
we got a cop got bagging groceries, and we got our drugs coming up and down our dead-end street.
Did you ever call about those?
Oh, yes, sir.
When did you make the report?
Oh, I've been making reports.
And what was the action that was taken?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing?
Even found it in my front yard.
So the 25,000 calls for service per year that we respond to, you're saying we don't do anything?
I would say you don't do nothing on our street.
What street is that?
My Kraken Road.
McCracken Road. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't you give me a call tomorrow and I'll look up the reports and I'll tell you exactly what we've done on McCracken Road over the last 12
We
months.
live on that dead-end street.
I
They
will
go
call
to
you
that
until-
gas station to do their drug dealing,
Okay.
because it's right off of
Tell
480.
you what, sir, we'll look it up and we'll let the facts speak for themselves.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Next evening is going to be the mayor, and I'm going to give him the questions also so that he can begin to answer them for you. But he will talk a little bit about the fiscal watch and the status of our finances at this point in time.
Yeah, Peter, where your kids are 24/7. Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Getting warm in here, or is it just me? This is not getting hot. You know, some people consider Maple Heights irrelevant. And what kind of people would do that? People from the state of Ohio, Cuyahoga County. You know, right now we're in the process tonight of picking ourselves up, or at least trying to, and having our eyes on the future next year. I believe, and I hope we all do, that our hope, enthusiasm, and accomplishments, hopefully, and the stars will align with them, and we can get out of this situation that we're in. We've lived so long with a crisis, but it's a crisis of confidence and a flourish for failure, that our spirit has become fraught with this cynical belief that things could only get worse. Failure hasn't been a choice, it's been a lifestyle. And you know, we're all from Northeast Ohio, Cleveland, suburbs, inner ring suburbs. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And it's gotten so bad in Cleveland, in this area, and we're the only major city in the nation that does this, that we gave our losses, and a lot of you will remember this in sports, we gave them names. The drive, the fumble, the shot, and the betrayal. We always spoke of these with Shakespearean doom. Failed urban renewal, default, and we all remember the corrupt county government were our daily bread. But this is somewhat of a hopeful time. And our region has, more importantly, our city emerges from this period of darkness. We have several forces to thank. Our city council, we should thank them, and especially their council president, for placing the 2 levies on the ballot, but more importantly, for standing up behind them. Our directors, our departments, law, finance, police, fire, service, human resources, human services, who along with City Council have supported the implementation and follow-up with these traffic cameras. And lastly, our residents, you, the people, not we the people, all of you, the people, for showing up here tonight and providing the ingredient our city needs the most, self-confidence. I have lived here my entire life, and I've been through other seductive moments only to be disappointed. When I became mayor in 2008, our city was rejoicing from the dark days of abandonment. We restored dignity and stabilized our neighborhoods. We paved streets, put in sewers, bought new equipment and vehicles for departments, created jobs, and opened new businesses. Heck, we even won a state football championship. And welcomed a nationwide, and in fact a worldwide TV show to our city. But amid this rebirth, I was cautioned not to be too optimistic by a close friend, very close friend, former Congressman Stephen LaTourette. He told me, and he called these times fragile and unpredictable. And you know what? He was right. The economy tanked, and the political face everywhere changed. Here locally, the retail efforts of stores failed. Churches, homes, and even our post office went dark. Business expansion was scrapped. Banks greenmailed their mortgage loans out of town. And millions of dollars in state and county money was lost. Today, all the rage is about the millennial generation, the return of LeBron and Johnny Football. But what troubles me is the other city, the one we don't talk enough about, in the county that we don't talk about either, Cleveland. Being an inner ring suburb of Cleveland has us sharing the following problems with all inner ring suburbs: lost population, a weak economy, school systems that struggle, a political system that is dysfunctional, and a brain drain that has diminished the quality of leadership everywhere. LeBron James said this, and I quote, "In Northeast Ohio, nothing is given, everything is earned. You work for what you have." So I want you all to ask yourselves this question: what kind of city do you want, and are you willing to join us and work for it? Any more questions?
Yes.
First question: if the cameras go, will they be replaced by the police with speed traps? Okay, all the questions, you know, they're all good questions, and they all deserve an answer.
Will it be replaced?
And I would say no, Mike, Chief. Yeah, we don't have enough police officers to, you know, run speed traps. Why does the mayor's salary cut occur 2 years after the council cuts? Well, that's easy, because the mayor's term is 4 years and the council's term is 2 years.
Can't you just cut it midstream?
No, someone who said, the Ohio law prohibits salaries from being cut in the middle of terms. They can only be adjusted up or down out of that term. So, to take effect into the next term. That's state law. How will the funds collected from the traffic cameras be allocated to the city departments and services? Right now, the funds that have come in have gone into the general fund, and they are used to make payroll, pay bills, pay the city's debt, et cetera, whatever expenses we have on a day-to-day basis. We've had a lot of employees that have retired, and they've had some pretty big buyouts when they've left. Some as high as $70,000, $80,000. So some of that money was used for that also. Can these statistics related to the cameras be published to the residents periodically? Yes, we can. We can put them on our website, and they can be seen. And that's a good point, and we're definitely going to do that. If the levy is passed to correct our fiscal problems, what actions will be taken to ensure that council and the city administration will be financially responsible so that we do not find ourselves back into this position in a few years? Well, right now with the state of Ohio placing us on fiscal watch, and we had to submit a plan to them to get out of fiscal watch, it's not a one-year plan. It's a multi-year plan, so they are going to be monitoring and checking and working with us to make sure that everything gets done the way that it needs to get done. So, in other words, Big Brother is watching. Where does the salary go for those who are no longer working for the city? The salary is not appropriated for. So if someone retires and we don't replace that person, that's just money that is saved. that would go back into the general fund to help pay bills and run the city and the
Right.
expenses.